Out there, thank you so much, all my veterans, for their service. Thank you for spending your holiday with me today. Tawana's taking off to enjoy some family time, but I decided to come on through and talk with everyone about something special that I saw. And tonight's session is going to be really great. I'm thinking that you are going to enjoy tonight's session. Hello from Philadelphia, Maria. So yes, everybody, put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. Put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. I just need to open up all of my windows here so that I'm able to see the chat in YouTube and on here, Facebook. There we go. And also, if you did a barbecue today or something special, put in the chat what you ate. Tell me where you're coming from. Tell me what you ate today. Tell me if you're a veteran. So again, I can thank you for your service. And yeah, we have a pretty, I think you'll enjoy today's session. Retired vet, Keisha. Oh, hey, Keisha. Good to see you. Yes, thank you for all your service, all of my veterans here. I see we have Philadelphia in the house. Hey, Chris. We've got Barbados in the house. Well, welcome. Chicago, Canada, Washington, Dallas in the house. Angie, hello. Got Florida here, got New Jersey, San Diego. You're fasting today. Oh, wonderful. Rhodey, yeah, on the grill as you speak. Okay, Chris. Look, I love it. Doing double duty. We got California in the house. Yes, we've got another vet here, Mark. Thank you again for your service, Tacoma, Washington. My father did some time in the military as well. This was before I was born, but I'm always grateful for all of our vets and definitely want to thank you for your service today. So we have a couple of things we're going to do today. Today's session is based on an angel investor that I heard speak. He does a podcast, and his name is Jason Calacanis. And every morning I try like 5 times a week to go out and actually do a power walk. And during my power walk, I listen to different podcasts. Sometimes I listen to messy stuff, but most of the time I try to listen to educational stuff. And I come across this podcast called This Week in Startups, and it is an angel investor named Jason Calacanis. And he is somebody who has invested in 250 startups, including Uber, Calm, and Robinhood. And his goal is to be the GOAT of angel investors. So you may be saying, well, Cherie, why are we studying this? Why are we going to learn a little bit more about this guy? So, and where did the whole puck and build the arena thing come from? So I'm on my power walk. I'm walking. And all of a sudden, this guy, he actually interviews like startup founders and other investors and things like this. But the host, Jason, the guy who wants to be the GOAT of angel investing, says, and forgive me if you have kids, but he said, screw the puck, I want to build the arena. And I literally stopped my power walk, pulled out my phone, and wrote that down. All of a sudden, I'm like, well, wait a second here. What is he trying to do? What are we missing? Is there a way for us to bridge the gap? So I started doing a little bit more digging about him, and that's how I found out that he's super successful with regards to angel investing. And because we are the home of the everyday VC, yes, that is trademarked, and because of what we're doing, the work to build Black wealth, and help Black businesses, I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to figure out why he is not really interested in the puck. Because we always hear the saying, skate to where the puck is going. Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard that saying, skate to where the puck is going. I'll give you all a chance to put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard. Put a 2 in the chat if you've never heard that saying, this old hockey saying, skate to where the puck is going. Okay, so some of you haven't heard that. So yeah, it's an old hockey saying, skate to where the puck is going, which means that you want to basically go where you're able to make a goal, where you're able to score, where you're able to actually achieve success. He's like, scrap all of that. Oh, Kevin, you recently read his book, Angel. That's going to be one of the things that we do. We're probably going to do a book club around it. So Jason does have a book called Angel, and he suggests that people who are angel investors read it, as well as people who are founders read it as well. So anyway, but it's kind of like, I don't know football too much, but you kind of, if the quarterback throws, to the wide receiver is going to where the ball is going and not where, the quarterback is. That's basically what it means. But the shift that we have within our community, if we really want to be successful with the 10K project as a big long-term movement, is to maybe think a little bit more like Jason and figure out, when this man says, I don't care about the puck, I want to build the arena, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? So for everyone who is new here today, you may be wondering who I am, what the 10K project is. I do want to say welcome to all of you. The 10K project is the largest community of small dollar investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. So investments are as little as $100 per investment. And what we do is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we invite a Black entrepreneur to come and to pitch our community. And we do this through something called a Bet on Black pitch. So the founder comes, they pitch the community, they talk about their company, they talk about whether they have sales, what's happening with their company, what are they going to use the money for, et cetera. And then the community of investors have an opportunity to ask that individual, that founder, questions. And then you as an individual have the opportunity to decide if you want to invest in that business. All investments are done on an individual basis. The investments are governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA, and that is because we do something called equity crowdfunding in our community. So if you want to be a part of the 10K project, I encourage you to come to the10kproject.com, the10kproject.com, in order to learn more about what we're doing. If you're an entrepreneur, you can also come to the10kproject.com. There's an entrepreneur tab where you can learn how to pitch your business. And we are going to start our course for entrepreneurs who want to raise money through equity crowdfunding. That'll be released, I would say, probably later this summer. We're knee deep into working on that. So that's what the 10K project is. So if you are currently an investor, with the 10K project, put a 3 in the chat, put a 3 in YouTube, and in Facebook if you're there. Okay, so perfect. So I see that we have our investors here. I got to print off my thing here. So one of the things when it comes to being an investor, excuse me, get this here. One of the things that when it comes to being an investor that I think is different with regards to the 10K project is we're thinking about this as more than just on an individual level. Yes, you want to build an individual portfolio. However, I do believe that the 10K project also is stronger when we start thinking with regards to um, how we are able to close the supply chain. So we've talked about that before. Does anybody in the chat remember um, some of the industries we've talked about with regards to the supply chain, and closing the supply chain, and what we can do in order to build Black wealth? Does anybody know or remember some of the industries that we're looking at? Or do you have an idea of industries we should look at? Because that's another big thing as well. We've talked about real estate. We talked about fashion last week. We've talked about natural hair care, if people remember that. We haven't had a lot of guests on these things yet. Those guests are going to come in the fall. We've talked about manufacturing, vegan restaurants. So we talked about agriculture. Absolutely, Kevin. We've definitely done that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find. Here we go. Hey, Curtis, I see you here in YouTube. Yes, perfect. Okay. So water filtration, that's a part of the supply chain. Yeah, that was an investment that we did, Caribbean Water Technologies. So yes, absolutely. Well, what we're going to do today is we want to kick it up a notch. And we want to start thinking with regards to some of the angel investors out there and how they're thinking, and some of the ways that we as individual investors and as a people can start to incorporate some of their thought processes as an angel investor into the 10K community. Because the 10K community is not just Tawana and I. It really is all of us coming together. So I do want to say that Jason does use a little bit of foul language. It's not too bad. It's not, like every other word. But if you hear one word from him, then, I just want to kind of alert you in advance, but it's not super bad. But what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen here. And I want to show you some of the things that Jason says in this interview. And let me make sure I can share my sound. Perfect. And just FYI, Jason is the gentleman on the right, the older gentleman, and the other gentleman is the one who's interviewing him. So the first thing I want to point out here, and go to the beginning here, is where he talks about him wanting to be the greatest of all time. Okay. And if you can't hear once we press play, just let me know and I'll make sure to go back and check this again, but it should work.
It's great having the program. I know I was in your hot seat.
I'm sorry. Had the speed too fast. Let's try it again. Okay, let's try it again.
And great to have you on the program. I know I was in your hot seat last week, so yes. Great to have you in our studio.
It is my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So a lot of people consider you the GOAT angel, greatest of all time angel investor.
It is half true.
So what's the edge? I mean, there's a lot of credible people in the area. What do you think is your unique edge here?
It's a good question. I will say that there are 3 or 4 angel investors who did really well. Bill Lee, Chris Sacca, Ron Conway ahead of me, but they don't angel invest anymore.
Right.
So since some of those have retired, I think Ron Conway and Sacca are no longer investing. And then Bill Lee has Craft Ventures and Mark Andreessen has, Andreessen Horowitz doesn't. So those two don't angel invest. They put in $3, $4, $5 million. So it's sort of like being Kevin Durant. When LeBron James leaves the game, he'll be number 1 by default, or the Greek Freak after that when Kevin Durant goes. So I bring that up because I want to let people know that I'm serious about what I do as an angel investor. So I will say I'm the GOAT angel investor, or I'm the greatest of, or I will be the greatest of all time. The reason I say that is because it's marketing, it's aspirational, and it lets my team know exactly what I'm focused on and why their jobs are super important. So some people think it's a little cocky or arrogant, which is great. That's what I'm going for. I want people to understand that I am confident that if I invest in your company, we're going to do great things together, and that I can be a game-changing investor. Because if you are the greatest of all time and you aspire to be the greatest of all time, you will attract the greatest. And so people see the work ethic I put in, and they see the goals I set. I've changed my goal. It's obvious that I'm one of the top angel investors of all time. And I think it's obvious to anybody paying attention that I will be the greatest of all time, hands down, because Paul Graham, he stopped working 3 or 4 years ago at Y Combinator. So there's an argument to be made that he's truly the GOAT, because maybe they're up to 1,500 or 2,000 investments over there. But the truth is, I think he stopped maybe when they hit 500 or 750. And I think he's been in Europe for the last couple of years, hiding out and enjoying his money. But the truth is, if you put all their investments together, I think it equals $70 to $80 billion in market cap, those companies. You put all mine together, it equals $70 to $80 billion. So if you put my track record against Y Combinator, an institution that's deployed, 1,000 times, maybe 20 times the amount of capital, I've done as well as them with 5% of the capital. I've done as well with 150 investments as they.
Okay, yeah. So I would just want to stop there where you said I've done as well with 5% of the capital. Okay, so a little bit of feedback here. Greatest of all time. Who do we think about when we think greatest of all time? Don't be shy in the chat. Who do we think about? Ali, that is right. Muhammad Ali. So, let's first of all start with the fact that we started it, right? Oh no, I didn't mean Kobe. I meant Ali for that. in terms of the phrase itself, and I'm the greatest, right? But even with Ali, he started saying it before other people saw it. Mike Tyson is the same thing. Mike Tyson had somebody this is my understanding, he actually had somebody following him around saying, Mike, you're the greatest, Mike, you're the greatest, to keep him in a certain frame of mind. He also, Jason, the angel investor, he spoke it into existence. That's right, Chris. He spoke it into existence. The angel investor, Jason. So Jason here is saying, basically, it is partially marketing and it is partially aspirational, but it is partially because like attracts like. And he wants to attract the greatest CEOs and entrepreneurs. And he wants the CEOs and entrepreneurs to know that if they work with him, they're going to have success as well. So I thought that was very interesting. I also thought it towards the end, which is why I played, that snippet there. He talked about the fact that he has done as well as institutions with 5% of the money. And I think that we can do the same thing. I do. So what are people's thoughts with regards to that first piece of it? What kind of goals and aspirations can we as the 10K Project, we as just Black investors, Black small dollar angel investors, what can we bring to society, to our founders, basically to say, hey, we're the greatest community out there. I'll give you all a chance to put some thoughts into chat. But one of the things that Tawana and I always, say is we bring those 3 buckets of people together. We bring the entrepreneurs, the investors, and those service professionals, those people who are actually able to help the companies start, grow, expand, etc. And Chris is saying, I like his boldness. That's what I got from the video. I actually like his boldness too. I do. I like the fact that he's like, look, those other guys, yeah, you know, they did some great things, but they're out of the game and I'm still here, you know. And he talks about the fact that in this video, this was from 2018. He said, I think he was 47 back then. So he saw a long trajectory as well. So Marie is saying, help our community when others don't. I agree with that. I was in a meeting last week, actually, and one of the things that came up was that we are able to see the greatness in our entrepreneurs before other ethnicities and other people do. And but one of the things that again came up in this specific meeting, and it was 5 of us, all African American and all crowdfunding, you know, insiders, is that a lot of times our entrepreneurs go to certain platforms, they go to other people, and if those people are like, I don't get it, that's an ethnic product, why would anyone buy that? Or that doesn't make any sense to me, why would anyone buy that? Then our entrepreneurs are left out in the cold. So what Maria is saying is absolutely the truth. You know, our aspiration is to be able to help you know, some of the entrepreneurs that may have been left behind in some other way. One of the other big aspirations that I have, and you all can put a 4 in the chat if you want to see this happen, I want to see 10K be able to help entrepreneurs raise $5 million in 24 hours. Now, $5 million, the reason I say that is because that's the cap right now with equity crowdfunding, 5 million per year. But one of the big aspirations we have as the 10K project is we want to be able to do that. Exactly, Latrice. And that actually doesn't take a lot of people for us to be able to do, especially with the right investment. Does that mean that every company that comes on raises 5 million? No, because not every company needs 5 million. Some companies may need 300,000, or some companies may need 700,000. But if we've got the next Uber, and the next Uber, you know, in terms of trajectory of revenues, and they come to us and they say, but we need 5 million in order to compete and in order to do this, this, and this, we are looking at 10K being able to do something like that. So Frederica is saying, are you saying we as members should pull together our resources to focus on, say, one particular business to give them the push they need to be successful? So I'm going to separate resources in terms of time and money. I think that one of the things that we're doing this summer is we're doing a big membership drive, and I'm working on that behind the scenes. So number one is us actually getting more people, getting more small dollar investors into our ecosystem. And then number two, having time and having attention. So Frederica, there will come a point where all of us don't have to focus on one business. We'll have so many people with so many varying interests that won't necessarily, that won't be necessary for, you know, any one individual to, or all of us to focus on any one individual thing. But I do like your thinking. I do like your thinking, and I didn't exactly foresee it like that. I saw it more like, hey, we really come together. We get a group of 50,000, ultimately 100,000, 1 million active investors. We could literally do things that no one else has seen before. So Kevin is saying, coupling with other businesses, broadcasts like Earn Your Leisure. Yeah, so we have spoken with Earn Your Leisure before, and you know, we continue to speak with them. They're definitely the 800-pound gorilla, you know, so yeah. Alrighty then, so I'm going to show you another part of the interview here. Oh, I want to just check YouTube really quickly and just make sure nobody else has a question. Oh, well, YouTube, I have to come back to you. We are close to 1,500 members right now. So, alrighty then. So for everybody who's new, this is an interview with a gentleman who says he is the GOAT of angel investing. His name is Jason Calacanis, and this was an interview he did in 2018. So we're gonna get into that brain of his and figure out a little bit more about what he's thinking. So let's come here. All right.
They've done with 1,500. So just in terms of efficiency, I'm a machine.
Which is interesting, because I think that you clearly have an infrastructure around you. You have the book, the podcast, the conference, and the newsletter.
I'm building it, and the university, founded that university.
But you would see that a lot of these angels that you mentioned will build up, turn into venture capitalists, growth investors, start taking outside money.
Yep. And we have outside money too with our syndicate, jasonsyndicate.com.
So why have you chosen to focus? Is that a particular strategy? You just are focused on that early stage?
Yeah, it's a strategy.
Okay. And which is kind of interesting, because I think that a lot of investors tend to just acquire assets under management. Why have you avoided that?
Right. It's a strategy because there's two ways you can generate amazing wealth and power in Silicon Valley. This is a small handful. One, you could be a founder, and that will get you the most power and the most notability, the most fame, and the most money. But you have to hit it a bullseye. You have to build Facebook, Google, Tesla, Airbnb, Dropbox, Uber, Robinhood. I mean, it's a 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 5,000 chance that you're going to do that, become a unicorn. So that is the most power, the most wealth, and the most fame and victory and high fives. After that, being the person who sources the company, the first person, has the most power. They don't have the opportunity to make the most money. The people who are the later stage, so Sequoia's growth, Masayoshi Son's growth fund with SoftBank, Yuri Milner, the people who have multi-billion-dollar funds, cash on cash, they will make the most money, because if Mark Andreessen puts $1 billion into Skype and sells it for twice as much, he gets $1 billion. 20%, no, not $1 billion, but he gets 20 or 30, probably 30% carry, 30% of the $1 billion gain.
Right.
So he makes 300 million. For me to make 300 million, I've got to hit like 2 or 3 Ubers. So my job is much harder. However, being the person who sources the deals, finding Henry from, Cafe X in Hong Kong when he was in school, or finding Blockable when they had just left Amazon to go make this modular housing company. That's what I do. I find the diamonds in the rough, and I bring them through my incubator, syndicate them, build a position of between 6% and 30% of the company, and then I hand them off like a point guard to, a short list of venture capitalists who I believe are the GOATs in their category.
Okay, so that is part 2. What'd you all think of that? So he said so much in there, but it really did come together. Again, getting in the mind of this guy who says he is the GOAT, or is going to be the GOAT, depending on what sentence you're listening to, of investing. And we are small dollar investors. So one of the first things that he talked about, or the interviewer asked him about, was the infrastructure and strategy. And Jason said he was very, very focused. And he was focused on remaining in early startup phase. He said, does anybody remember the 2 things that people look at? They look at wealth and what? Wealth and, let's see if we got it here in the chat. Anyone know? Wealth and power. He talked about wealth and power a lot. And I think that's one of the big things that we as a people, are really trying to figure out how do we gain wealth, and how do we get power in this system. And this gentleman here is saying, that for him, it does, going back to what Kevin is saying, it's either you're going to be a founder or you're going to source the deals. And I would say a third part is we invest in the deals early on, and we ride with them. We ride with that deal. And he talked about the fact that that being one of the first people to invest in those companies, getting them to a certain point. Later on, he's going to say one of the goals is to get on the board of those companies. So meaning that for us, that we have a close relationship with the companies that we're funding, and then ultimately hand them off. Jason just said this, to VCs that he trusts, because a lot of those companies, if they're going to be, $100 million, billion-dollar plus unicorns, as they call them, they're going to need extra capital. Does anybody know? Is anybody put a 5 in the chat if you have been an angel investor for, I would say, over a couple of years? Does anybody know? Hey, Lawrence, no problem. Welcome. And Latrice is saying wealth and power goes pretty much hand in hand. Yeah, it does. One of the things, I'm going to get political here because it's just me, and, Tawan will just call me on the back end. But, one of the things that I've been saying is that for us to get more political power in the United States and in the world, the globe, we've got to have more economic power. And many of you would agree, right? So, wealth and power do go, like Latrice is saying, pretty much hand in hand. And, being able to leverage our economic power for, being able to leverage our economic power in order to get political power and vice versa, that's a must. That's a must. So Kevin says the man or woman with the gold makes the rules. That's absolutely true. That is the truth. So if you think about your bosses, you think about, whomever's a breadwinner in your house, or all of that, that's the truth. And no lies detected, as they say. But going back to what Jason was saying about being the first person to source companies, and his vision and his goal is to get into companies early, because he's able to put less into a company in order to own a decent stake in those businesses. And he's also able to help mold those businesses and see them grow. So Shira saying we have a lot of misdirected wealth that has a short shelf life. We're not focused on legacy wealth. I agree with that. I do. As somebody who's been in cryptocurrency for about 3.5 years now, it really kind of concerned me when so many Black people were trying to get into some of these not so good coins, for example, because they heard about it on Clubhouse, or, somebody mentioned it on YouTube or something like that. So, absolutely sure. I agree. So then let's continue on. I'm going to share my screen here, and he is going to answer the question, what does it take to get to GOAT status? That's going to be the next question that he answers here. So I thought this was interesting too. So let's move forward here. Okay.
What's the diff? Like, how do you get there from, what's the difference between you, greatest of all time, investor period, and today, Jason today?
Well, I'm going to have to build massive, I need to do many more investments, have massive infrastructure, and I need to put larger dollar amounts to work, and I need to be on the board of these companies, all of which I've set up to do now. So I'm building the infrastructure, building the team, building the compensation package for those teams. I already have the network. I already have the platform. That doesn't need to get much bigger.
Right.
And I need to go international, which I've started to do. You may have seen Launch Festival was in Sydney this year, and we'll be in Sydney next year. And so we'll have some other announcements. My book just got translated into Japanese last week. Yeah. So I'll be going to Japan on a book tour. It's going to be translated into 7 other languages. So it'll be in 9 languages. And I'm starting work at the end of the summer on my next book. And the first book just had its 1-year anniversary and has over 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon and Audible. So it's a highly rated book. And I wrote it myself. Like I didn't have a ghostwriter like some other famous people here in Silicon Valley who have books that have done really well.
Yeah.
But
all right. So I didn't mean to play that last little snippet, but in this section, he talks about what it takes to get to GOAT status with regards to investing. And again, let's not look at this as individuals, because I believe that if we're going to do this, we need to do this as a community and as a team. So he talked about, I'll let you include it here, and I'm going to also go to YouTube and Facebook really quickly. Tell me, what do you all hear? Hey, Antoine. Hey, Trent, Curtis. I see all of you on YouTube here. Good to see you all tonight. So Ryan is saying, how can we do it as a team? Absolutely. We have to do it as a team. And I think it's impossible for us to not to be successful if we're doing everything solo. I think that's one of the things that we, as a community, as an ethnic community, we try to do so many things solo. That doesn't necessarily mean we bring everybody into our community and our circle here, because there's a lot of, there is an opportunity for greatness here if we make sure that we're all working together, we're all moving towards the same goal. So I think that that's very important as well. But as a team within 10K, just like he's saying, you need people to source deals. You need people to go out, find those great entrepreneurs, tell them about the 10K project. We need people to go out, find other potential investors, bring them in. We need people to find CPAs and attorneys and other service providers, project managers, et cetera, bring them in. Let them know this is the big vision that we have. And if we all work together and do our part, then nobody has to do everything. What do we need to invest, or what do we need to invest? I think it's a little bit of money and a little bit of time. Those are the big resources that we're going to need. I personally am looking at a 10-year trajectory with the 10K project. Doesn't mean the 10K project is ending in 10 years, but we are going to have to take this and do a long-term play in order for us to make headway, major headway. Keisha's saying a part of our success is seeing the what's in it for me, but also seeing and supporting the what's in it for our community and for others, e.g. the companies we are funding. I agree with that as well. So that's one of the great things, and one of the reasons why we chose the model of equity crowdfunding is because there can be a what's in it for you, what's in it for your family, as well as what's in it for the community at large. And one of the things I've been saying, many of you here have heard me say this multiple times, is we want to be strategic. In the next year or so, we want to be strategic in the types of businesses that we're bringing on so that we can stop some of the leakage that's happening in our community. Many of you know the black dollar stays in the community anywhere from 6 hours to 8 hours. We do not own pretty much any of the supply chain. What do we mean by that? That means that if you go and you decide to go to a black restaurant to eat, if they do not get their ingredients, the pans and pots that they cook from, their materials, the tables, the chairs, if they don't get those from Black vendors, then that money has leaked out of the community immediately. So what we want to do is we are going to have a whiteboard session for about 7 industries now we're at. And this will probably take multiple sessions, but we're going to actually map out the supply chain and then ask ourselves, are there Black-owned companies within the supply chain? If there are, great. Can we connect with those companies, figure out what other resources that they need in order to grow? Do they need investors? And then if there are no companies, can we start companies or can we buy companies in in those areas of opportunity? Or can a company that already exists in that supply chain then expand its services with a little bit of money? So Ryan, we don't own anything. I think we just don't own enough. I think that that's one of the things that we're looking at here within the 10K project. But one of the things I like about Jason is he's very deliberate, and I think we need to be as well. Chris is saying we have to be concerned about our issues, not everybody else's. This is about our people, the 10K project entrepreneurs and investors. Yeah. Kevin is saying less than 3% of Black and women founders are funded by VCs, and less than 1% of Black founders are funded. And I will say this as well. There are VCs and angel investors that are starting to wake up and say, oh, there are Black founders that are able to grow unicorns or grow successful companies, et cetera. However, number one, there aren't enough. And number two, there's still a wide gap between the funding that our companies need and the funding that they're getting. This is the ultimate time, the best time for us to be in the 10K project. Ryan is saying, I follow Dragon's Den. Why can't we have such investors? I don't think we need to have Dragon's Den type of investors. I think 10K is a version of that. So Kevin is also saying Calendly, yeah, owned by a Black person. So, okay, so Anonymous is saying, how can we do all that? Well, I think it comes in stages, number one. So it's a great question. Number one, I think it comes in stages. We're not gonna be able to do everything at once. Number two is the more members we get, the more staff 10K will be able to have, the more paid, subcontractors and paid gigs we'll be able to do as well in order to build this out. And the number three thing is we have a core group of, 20, 30,000 people who say, I believe, I'm in. I believe in what is happening here. And I know in 10 years, people will look at us and say, what in the world happened over there? How did they do that? And how can I be a part of it? So Latrice is saying baby steps for sure. Yes, absolutely. So Trent is saying in here, it takes a collective. One of the problems is the trust aspect and to get everyone to buy in. Again, I don't think we need everyone to buy in. I think we need a good 20, 30,000 people initial. And next thing you know, we find a couple of really good companies and we buy into them and they do some really big things and the floodgates will open. Trip is also saying, but we can definitely do it. Creating one big network would be awesome. The Black Achievement Fund sounds like a great organization as well. I've heard about them. I haven't spoken with their people yet, but I have heard about them. Yeah, Trent, so enough people don't know about us, but we have a big membership drive coming up this summer and we are getting the word out this summer. So we had a couple of things that we were planning or are planning for the summer for our membership drive. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes left and I've got 4 more things to show you. So I'm gonna move a little bit faster here. I know I've been the one talking here, but I want you to hear some more again of how this guy thinks and how we can do it too. So, all right.
Companies that kind of juice their own wheels. One thing that I think is refreshing with your style is that you actually have swagger. I feel like maybe this is, I've been in Silicon Valley, I guess, including my years at Stanford for a decade. So haven't been around the rodeo for that long, but it seems that like even in the last 9-10 years or so, it feels that more and more people are being more cautious. And I feel like you've been one of the rare folks who have been quite outspoken with your opinions and putting yourself out there. Yeah. And also putting it, you're saying, hey, I'm going to be the greatest investor in Silicon Valley. It's like a big target. I feel like more people should aspire toward that kind of swagger. I mean, what do you think is the difference? Has the environment changed? What do you think are the big drivers?
I think people are full of shit, number one.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of people running around town saying it's not about the money, but of course they have all the money. It's like really convenient to say it's not about the money when you have $1 billion and a jet and 5 houses, right? Oh, it's not about the money. It's like, well, you have the money. So, I grew up lower middle class. My dad was a bartender. My mom was a nurse. They lost everything when I was 17 years old. When my dad got behind on his taxes and almost went to jail when the feds came, and literally the feds came with raid jackets and shotguns and took his bar. But I'm an outsider, I don't think people really wanted me in this business. There were people who actively fought against me, high profile names in this business who tried to subvert my, ascendance. So I'm a kid from Brooklyn who people didn't want to have, or a group of people really didn't want to become an insider. And then thanks to Uber, the other investments are great, but that's the one that really set me apart, obviously. So thank you, Travis. I'll always be loyal to Travis and Garrett Camp for that. That got my flywheel started, and Sequoia making me the first Sequoia Scout. That was what gave me the ability to then do the Uber investment, Thumbtack investment, DataStax investment, and a bunch of other famous investments. So, I've been very blessed to have a supporter in Sequoia, supporter in, the founders of the early companies. But I got here by being candid, by being blunt. And there was a time when people took me aside and was like, you're kind of inside the tent now. You're an insider. You don't need to swing your elbows around, and fight for every rebound. And, when I was a kid, I was the type of kid who would jump into the middle between two 6-foot people, or when I was 5'5", and just rip the rebound right out of their hands. Because I would just sit there in a basketball game and I would say, okay, the ball's coming off the rim. He's going to get the rebound. And when he goes and brings the ball down to his waist, I'm going to run around the left-hand side and I'm just going to swat it, and then I'll steal it. Yeah. And I would just do it over and over again because I knew I was at a disadvantage trying to rebound heads up against people taller than me, but I knew they're going to have to bring the ball down to their waist, which is what they always do, which is so stupid. And then I just rip the ball right out of their hands. So I had to be scrappy. It was the only way I was going to get.
Okay. He said a lot there. I want to make sure I get into YouTube as well, see what Trent and the others are saying, Antoine, et cetera. So he talked about several things in that segment. And one of the first things he talked about, or the interviewer asked, was the difference between being cautious and being somebody who is aggressive. And I thought that was a very interesting question and then a very interesting response, because we as a community tend to be either super cautious or all out, going all out. And Kevin is saying here, reminds me of Gary Vaynerchuk. Yes. I don't think he's as bad as Gary. Gary V kind of works on my nerves, but but yes, I'm very, very, very sure, very positive of what he's able to do. But what was I saying? I was talking about the cautiousness, and then he also mentioned, people who have jets and planes and boats saying it's not about the money. And me personally thinking like it's about the community and the money. And one of the conversations that Tawana and I've had, and especially when the looting was happening last year, I actually did a video that said looting is an economic issue, because I happened to be in Northern Maryland, and a friend of mine who was in Southern Maryland has a big time government contracting job, and was doing a protest, participating in a protest with other government contract employees, and no looting was happening. And why? Because those individuals had things to lose. They had economics. They still protested. However, they were not going to loot because they wanted to keep their, 6-figure government jobs or their 6-figure government contracting jobs, et cetera. So when Jason talked about people in the industry telling us it's not about the money, I believe he's telling us we have to be cautious about that. And I see a couple of people with hands raised here. So Purdy, I don't know if you mean to have your hand raised. If you do, I'll let you speak. If anybody wants to speak as well, it could just be voice only. Um, so put in the chat as well that you want me to just have you on as voice only, just so I don't accidentally click on your name here. So Chris is saying, I do like his boldness in a positive way, even his arrogance. I think we got to go just as hard as he is. I agree with that. I agree. He's hard, he's smart, he's focused, and I like that about him. Ryan says, wants to say something. So Ryan.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm interested in what's happening, but I just wanted to know just a little more because I think I missed a few things because I was in between the kitchen and here. What is it? What is the investment about? Is it a service? Is it a product? Is it a merchandise? What is it we investing in? The people we are bringing in, what type of people do you need? Is it people that are interested in marketing, in doing an online service? Like, I just need to know a little more, just a little more insight, and then I could share it. So, if I'm interested, to see if my friends are interested and see what they want to get in, see if they want to get into it.
Okay. So there are three groups of people that come to the 10K project. The first are entrepreneurs who want to raise anywhere from $10,000 to $5 million. And they can do that through something called equity crowdfunding. The best way for us to have them learn about that is to go to our website and click Pitch Your Business. The second group of people that we bring together are investors. So these are people who normally invest in the stock market or real estate, and they want to add another type of investment to their portfolio. And the way that we work is the minimum investment in any individual business is $100. And on Tuesdays at 8 p.m., people within our community are able to come, listen to the presentation. And that presentation can be about any kind of business. We've had someone come on that had a water infiltration system. We had someone else talk about vegan soul food. Last week was an app around peer-to-peer lending. So, we've had people come on and talk about blockchain and interoperability in the healthcare system, et cetera. Brilliant Black entrepreneurs. So people are able to come as investors and just, be an investor. And then the third group of people are people who want to be service providers. So if you think about a company that's raising money, they usually are raising money because they need to hire people, whether it's full-time or part-time work. It may be a gig, maybe they need a project manager, a salesperson, all sorts of services, marketing, digital marketing, et cetera. So what we have people do is when they come to the 10kproject.com, they're able to, be one of those. They can be an investor, they could be a service provider, or they can be an entrepreneur, or ultimately they may end up being all three at different points in their life cycle, in their life. So that's how people can get involved.
Okay. So if, for example, what's your target market? Is it just people that want to sell their services, or is it people that would want to advertise their service, but they pay to advertise their service through your services? Is that what it is, or no?
So some people can choose to advertise their services, but that's done through the expert directory. And, that is a possibility if that is something that you want to do. And then some people are just investors,
Okay, I guess you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Bonnie, I'm gonna let you talk. Hey, Bonnie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Just getting back to the video that you had put on.
Mhm.
I don't know if I liked his attitude, and I liked the way that it was very clear what he was saying, and he was very
Mhm.
specific.
Mhm.
I don't know though, and this is maybe this is up for discussion. Is it when he says that it is about the money? I don't know if it's about the money or is it about wealth? Because I think there's a difference between being about the money versus being about wealth
Mhm.
and accumulating wealth. And
Yeah.
so for me, I think it's about the wealth. I would say that the other thing that I love what you're doing. I love, the whole collaborative and idea because, our mindsets have to change,
Mhm.
and we have to change so that we are not just about the money, and we are about wealth and wealth within the community.
Yeah.
So I think that's basically what's important. The one thing that I haven't, and maybe I missed this, and
Mhm.
I understand when you say that there is, you have the entrepreneur, you have the investor, and then I think there was a third thing that you
Mhm. Yeah,
said.
the service provider. Yeah.
Right, the service provider. What about the the folks in our community that basically are looking for things to do, are looking for things to create, like they want to become entrepreneurs, or if they're identifying, when you say identifying industries and segments, identify a specific industry that we're missing, and then maybe we're not able to find a Black business, or maybe there is a Black not that many Black businesses in that industry. What about going out to our Black community and getting individuals to come into that industry and to create those types of businesses?
So you're reading my mind. So there are two things that we've been talking about. Number one is to have smaller Zoom sessions for people who are interested in those industries. And either as we discover opportunities, they're able to start those businesses or they're able to buy those businesses. And I'm a fan of buying businesses because if all of a sudden we have a company with a 15, 20-year track record, then it's easier for them to get funding. And then maybe there's a group of us who is able to put in the initial funding for that business. You usually need like 10% in order to buy the business, and then the bank will fund the rest. So that's how we can get very strategic with regards to what you're talking about with regards to helping people who maybe they're in an industry but they're not quite sure yet what they want to do within the industry. And not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. However, we may have some people who say, look, I'm not interested in being CEO, I'm not interested in starting the business, but I've got 20 years experience in this specific industry and I can be an advisor,
Okay.
based on the team that is being started. Or I'll come in for 18 months and I'll do operations and I'll get operations up and running for this company. And then I'll hand it over to somebody else who can do it long term. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for us to work together as a community. And I think we'll be surprised who raises their hand and says, yeah, I can do that, once we start bringing opportunities to the forefront.
And I guess I'm also thinking about our young people,
Mhm.
our young people that right now, they really don't, that they either have a goal to go to college or they have a goal to get into some trade or skill, or they don't have any goal at all. This is a way to introduce other things and other alternatives to them.
Absolutely.
To get them into it. And so, those are my comments, and I'll leave it at that. So thank you for the time, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Bonnie, and thank you for your feedback as well. I definitely appreciate that. So within the section that we had just talked about, let me just make sure this is not an additional part. Oh yeah, okay. So within the discussion that Jason was having, he was talking about, it's not about the money. So I looked at it when he was saying it with regards to, we're hearing people who have a lot of money say it's not about the money. But I also agree with our community here with saying it's not about the money, it's about the wealth, and it's about the generational wealth for us. So like Bonnie was saying, it's about generational wealth. Um, and it is about the country and the world is changing. Uh, People are saying within the next 10 to 20 years, China will be a superpower, maybe the only superpower. We know that things are happening on the continent, et cetera. I think we need to be in position to be able to own certain things. We have a lack of ownership in the United States, and to be able to, figure out what we're going to do with regard to, I'm not saying we can reverse what's happening with China and Africa. I'm not saying that at all. However, there may be some opportunities for us on the continent as well. And we definitely don't want to miss those opportunities. So he also talked about two additional things. He talked about being candid and wanting to have people around him who are candid with him, and then him being candid with others to the point where sometimes people would pull him aside and say, hey, a little too much. I think this is interesting because I think one thing about us is we tend to be more straightforward than other people. But I'd love to hear somebody else's take on it. Either you can put in the chat, or you can raise your hand and say you want to talk about this. Being able to have discussions with each other and being able to say, hey, are we on the right path here? Because I think that that's important as well. He also talked about the fact that he was at a disadvantage when he got started. And later on, he talks about, yeah, I know I'm a white male, but, there are 2/3 of people who were above me and 1/3 who was below me. And they went into a little bit of identity politics. So we understand, and he understands that, yes, he's a white male. But he did talk about in here about being at the disadvantage, being disadvantaged and having to be what he called scrappy in order to really get his seat at the table. And I'd love to, again, have someone chime in and talk about that as well, because I do think, and we've had these conversations, and, of course, yesterday was the 100-year anniversary of what happened on Black Wall Street. Oh, and someone's mentioning Black Wall Street. This may be an outside of the 10K project, but I think it relates tonight on CNN. They are having a special on the Black Wall Street Massacre, also on the History Channel. Yes. So people have been really talking about Black Wall Street and being at a disadvantage. There is something to us really thinking about some of the advantages that our people didn't have during Black Wall Street, some of the disadvantages we still have, and being able to be scrappy, maneuver. There are going to be a lot of people who laugh at us and say, oh, y'all aren't going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And then when we're able to actually do that and come out on top, people are going to say, oh, I want to be a part of this, So Ron is saying, I hope compensation for this. I guess you hope you'll be compensated. Latrice is saying sometimes you have to have that personality to be successful. I think you do. I think you have to recognize some of the challenges you're going to have, and some of the challenges we're going to have as a community, and still be able to overcome them. So Kevin, I'm going to just allow you to talk here. You can unmute yourself, Kevin, if you want to come on.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. we've actually made a lot of people rich. The Tommy
Mhm.
Hilfigers, the Bernard Arnault, who owns Hennessy and Louis Vuitton, and we made a lot of people rich. You look at you mentioned Clubhouse. 70% of the users initially that used Clubhouse were African Americans,
Mhm.
and we've actually put Clubhouse on the map.
Mhm.
Now later, I've kind of found out that people like rappers like E40 had invested money in the Clubhouse, but initially, I don't even think they had any African American board members.
Mhm.
And
They
so,
didn't.
we're super consumers, and you had someone on the channel on your channel that that had a product a product similar to Clubhouse that I think you may have mentioned that maybe even Google was interested in looking into.
Yeah.
And so it's not
Allende. Yes.
it's not the issue that we've always been innovative, and it's just that we hadn't come together to provide the financial backing necessary to bring those ideas to fruition. And I think I mentioned earlier, Calendly. A lot of people, I think Angel Rich was on your program maybe a couple months back, and said, if that person had said that they were African American initially, that project may not have gotten off to where it is, today. And
Yes.
because
Calendly.
there's just, again, it's hard to tell other people what to do with their own money, and that's the thing, it's that a lot of these ideas need money, and if you don't, serious money, we're talking. And even if you look at Robert Johnson, that created BET, he got a $500,000,
Mhm.
as a
In the 80s too, in the early
80.
80s.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
when it was a lot of money.
yeah, that
Yes.
was a lot of money back then, and he got a $500,000 to
Mhm.
start BET. And so we've always been very, very innovative in the things that we've done. It's just the other folks have, uh, you know, either stolen those ideas or have taken advantage of them to profit from them. And so it's just, we just need to find a vehicle like this one to kind of help bring things along and kind of keep the money inside the community. So you say that I digress, but I just think this was really wonderful what you guys are doing, and hopefully other people, and I hope that other platforms on social media platforms, people on social media platforms will be willing to work together with each other to kind of help just think of the greater good of the community and bring folks together so that everybody will be aware of what each other is doing and work together to try to bring the community, bring community wealth, to bring wealth to the people that are following these programs, because I follow a number of different people. And the thing of the matter was kind of just befuddles me. It's like, why aren't you all on their program and vice versa? Advertising on each other's, platforms to try to
Mhm.
bring more, people aware of what's going on. Because if I think, like I said, if that were to happen, um, I think we will be well on our way to getting a lot of things done and changing a lot of stuff in society right now.
Yeah, so I'll just speak with regards to EYL. I believe they get a lot of people approaching them. We have advertised with them, but it was last summer. And then we had some things that we wanted to do to set things up foundationally. So we are able to go back to them. But, they're the 800-pound gorilla. So I think that there's just a little bit more proving of ourselves. But we appreciate EYL and what they're doing for the community, and the fact that they've opened so many people's eyes. The guy, Ian, gets tens of thousands of people watching him every week. So I think that people are starting to get into it. And, it's just going to take time. It's just going to take time, but it'll happen. So, Sauda says here, and thank you, Kevin. I believe that we must establish a sustainable plan for economic viability that will fund political power, educational independence, and cultural unity. I also want to add that historically, it is not the middle class nor those with something to lose who will stand on the front line. It's the youth and those with the most to lose. With respect to looting, I prefer to understand that the word connotates a racist perspective, and we must move away from such language. Okay. Chanel says, we are the biggest consumers and are very often using credit card debt to purchase these brands. We need to start creating, wearing, and using more of our own brands. I agree. Chris is saying this brother's on point. Latrice is saying exactly. That's what Be Seen followers do. They make others rich. Ryan is saying, I agree, but I think we pay too much to get investments. And that's a very interesting point as well. Sometimes we do overpay because once we get money, we're very, very excited to get into those investments. So, and then sometimes we've seen this as well. Our homes, for example, are not valued as much, and yet when we swap out the pictures for, you know, a white couple or a white person says they own our house, then the value of the house goes up, the appraisal goes up. So my mother and I have a running joke. My mother intends to die in the house that we live in. And I said, when it's time for me to sell this house, I'm going to change out all the pictures so that we're able to get maximum appraisal for it. And I know that's sad, but that's what we're going to do around here. Sure is saying, we invest in others with little to no question, but we question everything we do. And I know that we are not a monolith and there is varying levels of emotional intelligence and consciousness, but we must look at our mental baggage and also the generational impact of a lack mentality. We definitely are in need of a renaissance or recalibration, and it really starts with each person looking at themselves and examining our belief systems as well. Jeffrey is saying 2/3 of Johnson's outside capital was a loan. The balance equity was from John Malone. And people are saying that they love you. So that must be for Kevin. Yeah, so let's see here. Alrighty then, so I'm looking in YouTube and I am looking in Facebook. I just see the conversation going. So this is great. Well, I had more to say, but you know, it's 7:15. So officially we're going to wrap it up. I do appreciate, we have a couple of more hands up. So actually I want to allow Charmaine and Gerald to talk. So Charmaine, I'm going to put you on. Unmute yourself.
Oh, I didn't have my hand raised. I didn't have my
Oh,
hand
you didn't.
raised.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Charmaine. Gerald, I'm going to allow you. You can unmute yourself, Gerald. Gerald, unmute yourself if you're talking. Oh, you didn't mean to either? Okay. All righty then. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. If you want to be a part of the 10K project. Say that again, I'm sorry. If you want to be a part of the 10K project, somebody, Angie is saying, share the link. So let me get this for you here. And to everybody in YouTube and Facebook, the link is in the description. The link is in the description for the interview, so you're able to go and hear it all. There were a couple of additional things I wanted to go over today, but you know, maybe at another point. But I've really enjoyed the audience participation. Thank you everybody for being here today. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Latrice. We will see everybody next week for another Building Black Wealth session. Take care.